Hello, this is Santos with UTRGV Nursing 3403, and today we're going to be doing the abdominal assessment. And with the abdominal assessment, we're going to also follow the history and the IPPA regimen that we do with any other assessments that we do. But except for today, textbook-wise, you go inspection, auscultation, percussion, and palpation. So that's a proper way to do it, but today I'm just going to go ahead and do an overview, a general overview of those areas. All right, so with the history, what you want to find out what the history of the patient is. Okay, what kind of diet do they have at home? When was the last bowel movement that they had? How much was it? What was the color? What was this? What was that? And that's pretty important considering, if someone comes in that hasn't had a bowel movement in a week and they usually have, 3 bowel movements a day, yeah, it's going to be relevant information. If the patient comes in and has, they come in and you don't know what's going on, they came in because, they had bloody stools, that's relevant information once again. Are they taking any medications? Maybe they might think it's blood, but really they just, ate too many beets or something like that. Or maybe they took aspirin, sure enough, they end up having some kind of ulcer or something like that that just eradicated the bleeding. So, that history information will aid you into what's going on with your patient. All right, so first we're going to start off, we already covered the history, we're going to start off with the inspection. So usually you have your patient, they could be standing, it's best for them just to be comfortable, have them lay on the bed. So with inspection, you're going to see the skin just like everything else. You're going to check the skin, check if there's any abrasions, any lesions, is abdomen distended, is a patient breathing fine? Sometimes, laying down, they might have some kind of, difficulty breathing, and that'll kind of clue you into what else is going on. Maybe because of this distension of the abdomen, it's pushing up the diaphragm, and, there's going to be other complications with that. Can you see the peristalsis? With some patients that have hyperactive bowels, you might be able to see that. Is the umbilicus midline? A lot of the times with patients that have had, surgeries, or, tummy tucks, from tummy tucks to an X-flap for emergency cases, you might see either no umbilicus or it might be deviated to the side. So that kind of clue you in as to what's going on with the patient. With percussion, can I go ahead and stand up? With percussion, usually, like the book tells you to go from the lower quadrant, go up and work your way around. Personally, it doesn't necessarily matter because you're going to be assessing the whole stomach, not just one area, and just because you do one first doesn't mean you're not going to do the rest. So with percussion, a lot of the time with the percussion, what I've noticed is that some nurses focus on the liver, which is going to be on the right upper quadrant of the patient. So if you have the liver on the right upper quadrant, you're going to have that dullness sound with the percussion. And considering if there's going to be 4 quadrants right here, then a lot of the times that tail of the liver will go into the left upper quadrant. And, obviously you're going to have complications with the liver or with the spleen, which is located also on the left upper quadrant. If you can palpate that or you can percuss that, then, it's going to be complications with the patient. So with the liver, you might have, the edema, or you might have something else going on, and it might extend to even the lower quadrant. So that's something to report. All right. So, like I said, you want to go ahead and percuss in all the quadrants. And when you have a patient that has distension, or we have a patient that hasn't had a bowel movement in an extended period of time, that sound is going to sound different. It's going to be from like hollow to the dullness. That's kind of like the liver. So usually that occurs like especially on the right side, on the descending colon down to the lower colon. So you want to go ahead and do a thorough assessment. Compare that to what the day nurse told you or the night nurse told you, and then move on to the next day and compare your findings. With the palpation, you want to do the same thing. Start from one quadrant, go all the way around. Try not to miss any of those. Try not to miss any of the areas. Is the abdomen soft? Is it firm? And once again, going back to the history of the patient, is it hard because the patient hasn't had um, a bowel movement, or is it hard just because that's the way their stomach is? Is it distended because, they're just overweight? So a lot of the times, you know, having that history and then doing your palpation kind of clues you into what's going on. So is it soft? Is it hard? That's going to be your focus area. And considering, if you have a patient that comes in with appendicitis, you don't want to palpate. You have a patient that already has pain, you're going to palpate, you're going to cause them more pain, and even possibly cause a rupture. So what a lot of the times they'll have a patient, they'll have them jump up and down. I'm not going to have you jump up and down, but a lot of times they'll have a patient jump up and down, and that, if the patient ends up having pain, then, more likely you're suspecting appendicitis. There's the rebound palpation with the appendicitis that you can do. I believe it's called the McBurney's point. You understand it? So with the McBurney's point, if you have the right lower quadrant, usually with patients, you'll press down and you let go fast. That rebound effect, because of the swelling, the patient will have pain. And, I don't honestly do not suggest for you to do that. It doesn't, you know why the patient's here, they're having that localized pain. Why even bother trying to put them in more pain? I mean, yeah, you're trying to figure out what's going on, but I mean, you got to use your common sense as well, in my opinion. Let me see. With the auscultating, you obviously want to use your stethoscope, but a lot of the times you might hear, you might hear the mouth sounds hyperactive. I just heard it right now. You might hear their intestinal sounds without using a stethoscope. So hyperactive, or sometimes even absent. You might have a patient, especially in the ICU, but I'm pretty sure you guys might get them in the med-surg area and tele area. Or, you have a patient that have ischemic bowels, they end up getting the surgery, and okay, how do you know the patient's getting better? You go through your steps, you go through your assessment again. And, has a patient had a bowel movement? Is abdomen less distended? If it's not distended, have they had a bowel movement? Are they getting feedings? If they're not getting feedings, what are the steps to getting that intestinal movement going? And a lot of the times you'll have them take medications to help stimulate the intestinal movement, especially if they're getting some feedings. So with that being said, if you have a patient that's getting feedings, and if they're intubated or not intubated, you have a lot of patients that have PEG tubes as well, and they just recently had surgery, or even if they don't have surgery, but a lot of the times when they have surgery, they start them off with trial feedings with 20 mLs. You check the residuals, and sure enough, they have like 500 mLs. Obviously, the patient's not tolerating the feedings when you're starting them at 20 mLs an hour. Or even if you have them maxed out at 60, if the patient has the residuals of 600, there'll be some doctors that tell you, oh no, you don't have to stop it. Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want your patient to aspirate, because they're not tolerating the feedings, and now you're gonna have a respiratory issue. And that's where your assessment comes into play. If you end up having a patient that's getting any kind of feedings, especially if the patient's intubated, that can't tell you what's going on, or we have a patient that can't talk and they're getting PEG tube feedings like in a nursing home, and they come in to you, that assessment will tell you what's going on with the patient. Do you need to address it? Do we need to change the feedings? Do we need to stop the feedings and see what's going on with the abdomen and see what's going on with the intestines? So, going back to the palpation, with a palpation, well, you can have the patient either, stand up, have them turn around. And, is the patient having any kidney problems? Is there, anything going on there? In the books, you'll see that they'll have you close your fist, and then you'll hit the back of you hit the patient's back, and then you do the other side. So that'll tell you, is it one side or is it both sides? Is it both kidneys, one kidney? I don't recommend that. I mean, obviously, a lot of times they're in the ICU with me. You get the labs, the patient has hydronephrosis, you're not going to be hitting the kidneys. It's you don't want to cause more harm to the patient, especially if you know they already have complications. But of course, that'll clue you in as to, is there, because obviously you want to assess your patient. You'll look at the back, you'll see if there's any abrasion, is there any redness, is there anything like that going on with the patient. So, of course, you want to assess your patient, but, when you do the palpating, try not to go too hard with the palpation. That's just something to keep in mind with the patient, just to keep them comfortable. Well, I believe that covers the abdomen assessment. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Or if I missed something, go ahead and feel free to comment as well. Thank you.